The 90s saw a surge of films that depicted the harsh realities of urban life for Black youth.
Raheem is dead. Somebody shot.
Ernest R. Dickerson's 1992 film Juice, written by Ernest Dickerson and Gerard Brown and produced by David Haven and Neil Moritz, follows a group of four Harlem teenagers in their perilous journey into adulthood. Among them is Yolanda, played by Cindy Harrow. So Yolanda is introduced as the girlfriend of Q, or Quincy, one of the protagonists. She often serves as a voice of reason and concern, particularly as the group's actions escalate. Released in 1993, Menace to Society, written and directed by Alan Hughes and Albert Hughes, and produced by Darren Scott, chronicles the violent lives of Kane, Lawson, and his friend O-Dog in Watts, Los Angeles. In this film, Ronnie, played by Jada Pinkett Smith, is a young mother who offers Kane a chance at a different life, attempting to steer him away from the destructive path he's on. She represents a glimmer of hope and stability amidst the chaos. In contrast to the gritty realism of Juice and Menace to Society, Matty Rich's 1994 film The Inkwell was written by Tom Parks and Paris Qualls and produced by Charles Lane and Matty Rich. It presents a coming-of-age story set at a Black family vacation spot in Martha's Vineyard in 1977. While less directly focused on exploitation, the relationships between characters like Evelyn and Drew, though not romantic or explicitly exploitative in the same vein as those we'll discuss, showcase the complexities of female friendships and familial dynamics within a more idyllic yet still nuanced setting. These relationships, while different in their nature, still reveal the various roles women play in shaping and influencing young lives. Importantly, the Inkwell highlights how even boys from middle-class families with two parents and material resources are not exempt from grooming or from internalized pressures around sexuality. Drew, despite his access to privilege and protection, is depicted as emotionally isolated. His heartbreak and desire to feel heroic or love make him susceptible to marry an older woman who takes advantage of him. This serves as a reminder that vulnerability to exploitation transcends class and environment. Grooming, in its simplest definition, is the process by which a predator builds a relationship with a victim to gain their trust and ultimately exploit them. This can take many forms, including emotional manipulation, financial exploitation, or sexual abuse. In the context of these films, while explicit sexual grooming isn't always the primary focus, subtle forms of manipulation and exploitation of young people's vulnerabilities are present. Consider Menace to Society. While Ronnie offers Kane a path to redemption, the relationship is fraught with underlying power dynamics. Ronnie is depicted as a single mother, burdened by the incarceration of her child's father, and initially appears to act as a mentor figure to Kane, who is a minor. She explicitly tells him to stay on the right path, and Kane in turn demonstrates a protective loyalty towards her, evident in the party scene, for example. However, their relationship takes a deeply problematic turn when they engage in passionate sex, and Ronnie expresses a desire for Kane to leave with her, implicitly suggesting he step into the role of a father for her child. This transition is a clear example how vulnerability can be exploited. While Ronnie herself is in a difficult situation, her actions leverage Kane's youth and loyalty. This dynamic stands in contrast to cultural practices where, in the event of a brother's or best friend's passing, a close relative might legitimately look after or even marry the widow. Here, the situation is straight up foul, marked by a significant age disparity and a clear breach of trust. Kane's later visit to the incarcerated father or his best friend, knowing he engaged in sex relationships with the child's mother and had been living in her home, further underscores the profound ethical transgression and the unsettling implications of this exploitation. While Ronnie may not be a malicious predator, her actions create an undeniably inappropriate and exploitative situation that leverages Kane's youth and vulnerability for her own desires for stability and companionship. And I know some people might argue, well, Kane had turned 18 before they were intimate, but the situation was still weird, and I don't consider an 18-year-old mature despite the legality of it, and the fact that she was older, to me, it just gave predator vibes. So in Juice, Yolanda's relationship with Q is more conventional, but the pressures of their environment still subtly influence their dynamic. The film implicitly explores how young Black women like Yolanda are often caught in the crossfire of male aggression and territorialism, becoming secondary characters in narratives dominated by male struggles for power. Their emotional labor and concerns are often overshadowed by the high stakes of their male counterparts' lives. Given Yolanda's portrayal as a nurse, a profession often associated with care and responsibility, and her visible wariness with her controlling adult boyfriend or ex, the audience might expect her to either not engage romantically with the minor or, at the very least, strongly encourage him to prioritize his education. Yeah, she knows Quincy is skipping school and doing a DJ thing, etc., but she just wants her rocks off. The film even includes a telling scene where her ex or son literally calls Quincy her boy toy.
Who is this kid and what is he doing here?
Oh, please, Frank, don't you think it's a little late to try acting like a husband now?
Look, I just think you're taking this save the children shit a little bit too far, that's all.
Bye.
Look, I just wanted to tell you what's up for your own good.
Bye, Frank.
Well, I can't express concern what? Huh?
This subtly highlights the perceived age and power imbalance, even if the narrative doesn't fully explore these implications. This nuanced undercurrent where an adult character's personal dissatisfaction might inadvertently lead to less responsible engagement with a younger individual. It's particularly striking how all three boys, Q, Kane, and even Drew in the Inkwell, were depicted as vulnerable or lost. And in Juice and Menace to Society, it seems these grown women, or perhaps inadvertently or perhaps purposefully, took advantage of that. All these women were also depicted as attractive, with some type of problem with their mate. And often in the real world, such situations might be brushed off with a dangerous notion, especially when it leads to attraction, that the boy should be grateful. This is deeply concerning. Should we not allow Black boys to live outside of being reduced to sexual desires? Do we have to risk caretakers or those in positions of influence even taking advantage of them? Does it not take away their autonomy in an already controlling and racist world that constantly seeks to diminish them? How was grooming or its subtle manifestations overlooked by audiences and Hollywood? Often the focus in these films was on the external violence and drug culture and systemic oppression faced by Black communities. The internal dynamics of relationships, particularly those involving manipulation or exploitation, might have been overshadowed by the more overt social commentary. Furthermore, the pervasive stereotype of the strong Black woman can sometimes mask vulnerabilities, making it difficult for audiences to perceive when a Black female character might be either a victim or, in rare cases, a perpetrator of subtle manipulation. Hollywood, in its pursuit of narratives that often sensationalize or stereotype, may have also missed opportunities to delve deeper into these nuanced power dynamics within relationships. While one might not entirely expect Hollywood to present Black people in the best of light, given its history, it's particularly vital for Black onlookers to shun this type of media or, at minimum, critically acknowledge how such actions are problematic and how they traumatize Black boys, instead of glamorizing them as some distorted rite of passage for manhood. This call for introspection is essential. How can we as a community continue to complain about the issues we see, over-policing, misrepresentation, broken homes, yet fail to protect adolescent Black boys or even their image in film? Where is a broader discussion or action plan on keeping them safe? There's always, and rightly so, an outcry when Black girls are harmed, but that same urgency must extend to Black boys. If we are to build future generations that are protected, nurtured, and uplifted, we must be willing to confront deviances like grooming, even when the predator is a Black woman. This is not about villainizing Black women, but rather about holding all adults accountable and ensuring all Black children, regardless of gender, are safe. Is this something that happens often in everyday life with Black boys, and is it dehumanizing? Unfortunately, yes. Black boys and young men are disproportionately targeted for various forms of exploitation, including involvement in gangs, drug dealing, and even sexual exploitation. According to sources like Traffic 911 and Our Rescue, Black children comprise 53% of all juvenile prostitution arrests and account for 40% of all victims and survivors of sex trafficking. These numbers are alarming, especially considering that many of these children are not criminals but victims of trafficking and abuse. Additionally, the adultification bias means that Black boys are often perceived as older and less innocent than their white peers. The research by Goff highlights how this dangerous bias can make it easier for society to overlook their victimization. This perception of Black adolescents as men, often due to their physical stature, has deep historical roots in slavery, where Black children were denied childhood and forced into adult labor and responsibilities. Their bodies seen as instruments of production or objects of desire rather than vulnerable beings. This dehumanizing legacy continues to affect how society perceives and treats Black boys today. Hypersexualization also plays a critical role. The pervasive stereotype of Black males as hypersexual can lead to their early sexual experiences being interpreted as rites of passage or conquest rather than acts of coercion or exploitation, particularly when these encounters involve older partners. This hypermasculine expectation increases the likelihood of psychological trauma, as it can discourage them from identifying as victims or seeking help. Adding to the crisis is the fact that female predators are frequently overlooked. The National Center for Victims of Crime reports that when women sexually abuse boys, their behavior is less likely to be labeled as criminal and more likely to be trivialized. Sentencing disparities reflect this bias. A 2023 report by the U.S. Sentencing Commission found that females across all races received sentences 29.2% shorter than males for all offenses and were 39.6% more likely to receive probation. While this covers all offenses, it strongly suggests a systemic leniency that can extend to sex offenses, further complicating justice and protection for male victims. What happens when the predator is a Black woman? This is a far less explored and often more uncomfortable conversation. Society often struggles to conceive of women, particularly Black women, and predatory roles due to prevailing stereotypes that position them as victims or nurturers. However, predators come from all demographics. When a Black woman is a predator, it challenges conventional narratives and can be particularly devastating for the victim, as it defies societal expectations and can make it harder for the victim to be believed or to seek help. It also highlights the urgent need to expand our understanding of vulnerability and predation beyond simplistic genders and racial stereotypes. In conclusion, the relationships presented in films like Juice, Menace to Society, and The Inkwell, when viewed through the lens of grooming and exploitation, reveal complex power dynamics that extend beyond overt violence. While not always explicit, the subtle manipulations and vulnerabilities present in these narratives highlight the need for a more critical examination of relationships in cinema and in real life. How can we as audiences and as a society become more adept at recognizing and addressing the nuanced forms of grooming and exploitation, especially when they defy conventional expectations of who a victim or predator might be? And what responsibility do filmmakers and the entertainment industry have in portraying these intricate dynamics with greater depth and sensitivity, thereby fostering a more informed public discourse on the pervasive and dehumanizing nature of exploitation in all its forms? I hope you all enjoyed this topic. I just noticed a link on one of my YouTube colleagues mentioned Yolanda. I was inspired by him, and I wanted to link the connections with the other groomers I noticed in Black films. Just leave your comments down below, and thank you so much for supporting my channel. I'll see y'all next time.